entrepreneurs different. And that's important because not everyone is going to be an entrepreneur. In fact, very few people are entrepreneurs. But you can actually take on some of the characteristics of an entrepreneur when you go and work in a big organisation. And we're going to talk about what makes that different and how they work.
At the University of Sheffield, we're working with the international faculty, we're working with partners here in Romania to try and look at, across the Balkan region, how organisations have been resilient, both firms and government, and really trying to understand the different responses and how that's affected the performance of both regional economies but also the businesses themselves. So in the United Kingdom, the work that we're doing at the University of Sheffield has focused predominantly on the city region where we're based, but we're extending that as well. And it's an interesting time in the UK because the transformation of regional government has actually meant that the United Kingdom is in a state of flux, really. So in order to try and understand how we develop, it makes sense to try and compare ourselves with Europe, and especially some of the stronger economies in Eastern and Southern Europe. I think there's a couple of things really. The first thing is relating to the importance of entrepreneurs for regional and kind of local development. Increasingly governments around Europe, especially in Western Europe at the moment, though, have put a lot of energy into trying to facilitate entrepreneurs and try and really grow the economy through entrepreneurship. And this makes quite a transformation that's happened over the last decade really within Europe, and it's something which we're gradually beginning to see the results of. So if that trend continues, then the importance of entrepreneurs will really grow within the economy, and it's about trying to realise and capture that value. I think that's a common pattern that's occurring across Europe, but what we see is the type and the way in which some of the entrepreneurs behave is somewhat different, the way in which they respond to some of the challenges. I think also another interesting fact here is that there are lessons to be learnt between entrepreneurs in Southern and Eastern Europe and also Western Europe, and some of those lessons from Western Europe would translate directly into Eastern Europe and vice versa. In talking to some of the entrepreneurs, it's been particularly interesting to see how European funding has actually changed the way that they behave. In terms of the research and what we're actually trying to achieve, I think actually understanding and trying to help entrepreneurs and help governments understand each other a little bit better, I think, is one of the key things that we're trying to achieve. Another aspect to that is trying to understand the support networks that exist around entrepreneurs as well. There's been a lot of energy put into business support. And it's trying to make sure that that money's well spent and that the entrepreneurs are generating strong results that really culminate and result in economic growth and increased competitiveness of regional economies.
Resilience has become an important aspect of the work we do before the sort of economic crisis that's affecting everybody at the moment. Everybody talks about sustainability of businesses or the sustainability of particular industries, but now in the social sciences we're looking at this idea of resilience whereby it's about what an external shock that happens, whatever it is, a financial crisis.
Today we are looking at two things to do with economic resilience. The first part of the presentation is about the resilience of organisations, so how organisations respond to external shocks, for example, the financial crisis, how that's affected them in terms of the clients, the customers, demand for their products and services, and the other part of the presentation is looking at the resilience of individuals, so how they respond to outside shocks as well. In terms of the economic resilience side of things again, so looking at if there's a change in the marketplace or change in an industry that they worked in, how can they best ensure that they are resilient to that and can carry on developing the career, developing new opportunities that will help them. It's slightly different from sustainability in the sense that we look at economic resilience in two different ways. We look at shocks that can be expected and shocks that are not expected, and people just have to respond to them when they occur. So it's slightly different from just having a sustainable plan, because some of the external shocks that occur are not planned for, and people have to therefore respond to them as best they can when they happen. So I suppose it's linked to sustainability in terms of developing sustainable businesses, but it's also recognising that not everything goes to plan, and it's how best to respond when things don't go to plan. I think when we talk about individual skills, we often talk about what we call entrepreneurial capabilities of people. So really what that's saying is that they need to be flexible, they need to be responsive to change, they need to be creative, and it's all those kind of capabilities that people need to develop so that when a shock occurs they can respond to it positively, and it doesn't stall them in the long term. It means that they can bounce back from that shock and do better in the future, I suppose.